Okay, is this on? Welcome to the regular meeting of the El Centro City Council for Tuesday, March 1st. First, we'll have roll call, please.
Mayor Silva,
Present?
Mayor Pro Tem Sanders,
Here.
Councilmember Edney,
Present.
Councilmember Walker,
Here.
Councilmember Solomon.
Here.
Mr. Edney, can you please lead us in the pledge and the invocation?
Join me as we salute our flag and our country. Ready, begin.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing and join me in the prayer if you so desire. Dear Lord, we are thankful to gather here as a community. We ask your guidance on all the business that we conduct here this evening on behalf of the great people of the city of El Centro and Imperial County. We ask that you guide our hearts with your infinite compassion and our minds with your infinite wisdom. We ask a special blessing to all those who are suffering throughout this nation and throughout the world in the conflicts. We ask a special blessing on all those who serve to protect us so that we may conduct this business here this evening in freedom and open expression. We ask all these in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Edney. We'll have a report by our city attorney in regards to closed session earlier today.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The council did meet in closed session this afternoon. Mayor Silva was absent throughout the entire proceeding. The council did hear reports regarding one potential litigation item, and the council did authorize on a vote of motion by Walker, second by Solomon, passed on a 4-0 for the city to intervene in the case of cities of Brisbane, South San Francisco, and Alameda et al. Versus State Board of Equalization, and case number 0950-923 and 509-323 and 509-234. And those are all in the county of San Francisco, city and county of San Francisco, and they pertain to a sales tax, use tax matter that may affect our city. The council did add one potential litigation item, motion by Edney, second by Solomon, passed on a 4-0 vote. There's no action to report with regard to that item. The board did hear reports regarding labor negotiations, and there are resolutions for the department head compensation resolutions that the council will need to act on following my report. And they are considered part of the agenda since they were considered and listed under closed session. And as to the other bargaining groups, the council heard reports, and there's no action to report. On 3 litigation items that were listed, Councilmember Walker has abstained previously and did abstain in this particular matter today with regard to McKay versus City and Centro versus City. And there was no action to report, but a report was given to the City Council. And with regard to the City of Oswald, again, Member Walker did abstain, as she had previously, and a report was given and direction was given to staff with regard to that item. There's no further action to report.
Thank you, Mr. I think there's a desire or need from the council to adjourn back into closed session after the regular session as it relates to labor negotiations. So, can that be done?
Yeah, you would just need to make a motion at the end of the meeting.
Okay. We do need to act on individual resolutions for city staff that was discussed earlier today in closed session, and my understanding is that they need to be acted individually. And I believe all of you have the resolutions in front of you. So first is resolution number 1110, resolution of the City Council of the City of El Centro establishing the compensation for the position of city manager. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Sanders, second by Walker. Please ballot.
Motion carried 5-0.
Resolution 1111, resolution of the City Council of the City of El Centro establishing the compensation for the Director of Economic Development. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
Motion by Sanders, second by Walker. Please ballot. Resolution 1112.
We need one more. Mr. Solomon. Motion carried 5-0.
Resolution 1112, resolution of the City Council of the City of El Centro establishing the compensation for the Director of Finance. Is there a motion?
So move.
Moved by Sanders, second by Solomon. Please ballot.
Mrs. Sanders.
Thank you.
Motion carried 5-0.
Resolution 1113, resolution of the City Council of the City of El Centro establishing the compensation for the Fire Chief Director of Disaster Services.
So move.
Moved by Walker, second by Solomon. Please ballot.
Motion carried 5-0.
Resolution 1114, resolution of the City Council of the City of El Centro establishing the compensation for the Library Director. Motion.
So move.
Moved by Sanders, second by Solomon. Please ballot.
Mrs. Sanders. Mr. Solomon.
It's on.
Motion carried 5-0.
Okay. Resolution 1115, resolution of the City Council of the City of El Centro establishing the compensation for the Director of Parks and Recreation. Moved by Solomon.
Second.
Second by Walker.
Mr. Edney.
Sorry. Trying to write these resolution numbers on each sheet, but I don't know what
Motion
order
carried
he's going in.
5-0.
Resolution 1116, resolution of the City Council of the City of El Centro establishing the compensation for the Director of Planning and Zoning.
Second.
Moved by Solomon, second by Walker. Please ballot.
Mr. Solomon. Motion carried 5-0.
Resolution 1117, resolution of the City Council of the City of El Centro establishing the compensation for the Chief of Police.
So move.
Moved by Walker,
Second.
second by Sanders. Please ballot.
Motion carried 5-0.
Resolution 1118, resolution of the City Council of the City of El Centro establishing the compensation for the Director of Public Works / City Engineer. Moved by Solomon,
Second.
second by Sanders. Please ballot.
Motion carried 5-0.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Sure.
I'd like to say a point. The approval of these resolutions on behalf of the council is certainly not taken lightly, and I want to suggest that we very much appreciate the staff that we have here in the city and appreciate the hard work that they have contributed to the success of this city. The significant thing about these contracts that I think that is a change is for the first time maybe ever, I think, in the city, or certainly in a long time, these contracts that the city council ratified 5-0 require a full contribution of the employees' part of their pension costs. And while that is a difficult undertaking for all of our employees, I think the council collectively believe that in the interest of providing services and maintaining employment as we go through these very difficult times over the next, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years, we were left with no other choice. And I just thought it was important to say that. In no way does it take away from our respect or desire in how the council believes our directors and the city manager have done their jobs. It's a reflection of the times. And it is, I think, my hope, and I hope I'm speaking for the rest of the council, that we undertake this as a way that we have been consistent in making sure that we have a balanced budget, and that we continue to maintain the employment levels of this city and not be forced into what we've seen from many other cities and local jurisdictions, which is continual furloughs and layoffs. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Edney. Any other comments from the council? Okay. This is a public meeting, If there's an item on the agenda in which you wish to be heard, please complete a speaker slip and submit it to the city clerk prior to the start of the meeting. When the item is announced and your name is called by the mayor, please come forward to the microphone, address yourself to the council, stating your name and address for the record. Unless the mayor extends the time, there is a 3-minute time limit for each public presentation. If you wish to address the council on any subject matter within the council's jurisdiction that is not listed on the agenda, you may do so during the public comment portion of the agenda. Some housekeeping stuff. We have a need to add an item. The item is in front of you. It's a resolution regarding the sale and delivery of bonds.
Motion to approve.
Motion to add.
Or, I'm sorry, add.
Motion to add by Mr. Edney, second by Walker. Please ballot. We'll take
Motion
that
carried,
item
5-0.
honestly at the, towards the end of the agenda. I think for the purpose of clarification, Mr. Hernandez, the reason for the need to add this as an emergency item?
There's immediate need to take action, and the need to take action arose after the agenda was posted.
Okay. We'll defer the announcements to later for the entire council. We'll move on to our scheduled public comments. We have our monthly report by Mr. Aaron Popejoy with the El Centro Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, you're back in business.
I'm back in business. Wanted you to know I take you seriously. Well, good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. I'm here tonight on behalf of the El Centro Chamber of Commerce and Visitors Bureau, again, as you know, for my monthly report. February may have been a short month in duration, but it wasn't short on activities at all. On the contrary, it was a busy month, as busy a month as any. One of the highlights of the month was our annual Air Show Gala at NAF. Some of you were present for that and were able to witness what an elegant and upscale evening it is and has become over the years. It's also our opportunity to show support and gratitude. Speaking of which, representatives from the Chamber were also present for the scoping meeting the following week at Southwest High. More on that subject in a minute. Our monthly mixer last month was hosted by Jay Goyal and Exit Imperial Realty on 4th and Aurora. It was a great event, great weather at this time of year, and everyone had a good time there. The following day, we had a ribbon cutting with Carl Karcher Jr. to welcome the remodeling and expansion of Carl's Jr. on 4th Street, and it's been totally redone on the inside, and it now includes a green burrito. And he was down here with his family to make that happen. And last week, we were also honored to do a ribbon cutting for the recently renovated lab at ECRMC, which was rededicated to Dr. Westcott. His family was present and made a financial contribution in his name. This was a great example of how our city is staying on the leading edge of healthcare technology to provide a better quality of life for our residents. Coming up this month, well, it's also a busy one, with lots of great community events, as you know, and I won't go into all of those. But in regards to the Chamber and the Joint Chambers of Commerce, we want to invite you all to join us for the annual Business Affair Mixer. That takes place during the Midwinter Fair at the Plaza de las Culturas patio. That's around the side, over to the east side. That's Thursday the 10th at 5 p.m., and we have discount tickets for that evening for Chamber members, including yourselves, and those are available at the Chamber office. Our monthly mixer for March will be held at Desert Air Conditioning on Main, and that's out near Lee Tire, and that takes place on the 17th. We're also doing a ribbon cutting for the new University of Phoenix in El Centro on Saturday, March 19th in the afternoon. What time is that one? Is it noon? Like noon to 3.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to do a big shindig for that one. Our quarterly morning mixer will take place this month on the 22nd, and that's at Golden Corral. And that one's well attended, so you want to get there early. It's about 7:30 is when that starts. Moving on to other items of interest, as I've mentioned before, the Chamber's looking forward to the outcome of next month's special committee meeting to establish an index for adjusting the threshold for prevailing wage projects, and we're open to being part of that process if requested. We also understand that the city is a member of the newly formed regional coalition to support the possibility of expansion in NAFL Centro, and that Councilwoman Sanders has taken the lead to get mayors from around the valley into this effort. We very much appreciate the city taking this lead, and we're ready to embrace that and join you in that idea of home basing the F-35C here in the valley. Our board of directors has taken action to support the idea as well, and we have now issued an official letter to the business community to garner wider support and encourage them to comment by the March 14th deadline. We have a sample letter available on our website that can be used and modified. And that's it for now. Thank you, and we'll see you.
I think it was important to note, Aaron, that at the Carl's Jr. Ribbon cutting, that the real Carl's Jr. was
Yeah,
there.
Carl Jr. was at
the-
Carl's Jr.
Right, exactly.
That's the real guy.
The real guy. Although he did say that the restaurant is not named after him, ironically.
Yeah, I think it came before him, but
Yeah.
thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I might just
Sure.
add, thank you so much, Mr. Pope Joy, for those kudos, but I'm working with John Edney, who is our president of our League of Cities Division, and getting the mayors coming together. So we're working from a collaborative effort on that
Okay,
effort.
good. Appreciate the
And I think,
collaboration.
Mr. Pojo, at the last council meeting during council comments, we all spoke very strongly, not only in support of the efforts of bringing that home base here, but in our efforts and our desire to work collaboratively with the chamber, with the entire county, and develop a comprehensive and strategic plan that will take us through the whole process.
Absolutely. We would like to work together with you, and what we're trying to do right now is rally support for the March 14th deadline, and that's just for comments, positive, negative, questions, that sort of thing. The Navy's looking for that. And moving beyond that, we need to do even bigger and better things, more effort to let them know how interested we are in this.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robert. Okay, let's move on to the consent agenda. I do have a request to pull items 2, 4, 5, and 6. So I need a motion to approve items 3, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Approved. Moved by Edney, second by Sullivan. Please ballot.
Motion carried 5-0.
Okay, let's deal with item 2, approval of the change orders for Fusco Engineering and Dudek for consulting services for the Dogwood Signalization Project. I think, Ms. Edney, did you pull this one? Ms. Walker?
I was hoping to get some information from staff. You know, it's always a bit troublesome for the council to have to approve change orders after a project has been completed at a cost that we think is fair and negotiated well, planning perspective. So I'm looking to staff to provide us with additional comment and information as to why we had such a significant increase with regard to this project.
Sure, I could do that. Let me speak first about the budget and then the expenses, and then I can give you a status on where we're at with the project as we move into this final month, and then we can get into any specific questions that you have with regards to the consultants. Basically, as you see up there, our budget at this point in time is roughly $2.9 million. With the recent completions of projects, our ERA project on Adams Avenue and our RSTIP project on Imperial Avenue, we received additional federal funding for those two projects, which in turn led us to backfill our LTA with match amounts, our local match amounts that we originally would have had to have put on those projects. So we have, in essence, another $300,000 that we didn't have before in our LTA. The expenses to date, you see there are roughly 2.9. That brings our contractor to a current amount, and it brings our consultants up to an amount through January. And in your packet, you'll see an estimate on the months for February and March for what we believe our consulting costs are going to be. I asked that be provided for council. Where are we at with the project to date? This is our final month. Next week, we are going to be closing the off-ramps down for 5 consecutive days. The reason is to put up signal lights, do final paving, put up guardrails, essentially the final push to get this project done. After that, it'll just be mop up. They'll end up putting in the rock mulch as well as final cleanup.
I'm sorry, Mr. Gay, you're closing down both on-ramps
We are shutting,
at the same time?
correct. Since our meeting with the district director, we've been able to partner rather well with Caltrans. Originally, they had issues with doing a total closure. However, we started looking at constructability and as well as multiple closures that may have to happen if we were to first grind and pave and then subsequently put up signal lights. And so we decided that in the interest of the traveling public as well as completing this contract in a timely manner, it'd be best if we can close this interchange down. Public safety will not be affected. They will be allowed to go through the site, and there will be sufficient detouring up to, for the traveling public. So that kind of gives you a brief overview of where we're at. We are on track to complete this project by the end of March, weather permitting. We have had some rain, so we're hoping that we have clear skies for next week. The consulting costs, the primary reason for the increase in consulting costs has to do with the extension of the construction time and the phasing. So originally, this project was 91 working days. And right now, we're at 200, the end of the project is scheduled for 291 working days. So that extends, there's a lot of personnel costs for our consultants. There's been additional testing that's been required, structural testing. We've had engineering studies done, slope stability tests that have been done outside of this extension in contract time. We've had to have additional personnel out on site for traffic control, as well as additional surveying services. So I think the main driver for the consulting costs are the time. Originally, they were estimated to be in and out in 91 days.
Mr. Gay, have we identified the week that of the closure, and how will that be communicated?
We have. We've had 2 meetings with Caltrans as well as multiple meetings with the contractor to discuss this closure. The contractors provided a detailed schedule, basically an hour by hour of what they're going to be doing. Tomorrow, notices are going to hit the paper for 5 days. We've already notified the paper of that. That's been sent out, as well as radio and public safety. Tomorrow, I was going to give courtesy calls to Alyssa Swain, the mall manager, as well as Best Buy and that development out there. So at least they're fully informed. We have more than enough traffic control out there for detour for the traveling public, so I think they'll be well informed in that manner.
Ms. Riley?
Mr. Gay, what was the original accepted bid contract for this project?
For which, for the consultants?
The
or
entire
for the
contract for Dogwood revitalization and installation of the lighting. I guess my concern is you put this down as a total budget at $2.89 million, and our revised total expenses are 2.9. So the suggestion is that, according to this document, is that we're $17,000 over budget.
No, let me be clear, because I want the public to be clear, as well as the intent of this slide. The original project budget for the contractor was $1.92 million, roughly. The the actions that occurred after that fact allowed the project budget to increase. We allocated an additional $625,000 from Prop 1B money after the project was bid. So the original project budget was smaller. It was smaller.
So if you added the total of the construction budget with the consultant budgets, it was probably 2.2 or 2.3 million, as I recall, when we originally approved it. Does that sound about right?
2.3, I can't, between 2.3, 2.5, but
Okay,
around there,
somewhere there.
correct, yeah.
So we now are, we are now at 2.9 and change, only through January 15th.
That's right, that's right.
So we're likely to be, based on these costs, January, you got February, March, another 60 days worth of billing.
Correct.
That's saying to go.
Correct.
So we're going to be at $3.3 million
That's
for a
possible.
project that is, so in other words, we're $700,000, $800,000 over what we initially approved. Fair enough? And we're 200 days.
Correct.
We're 300% over the original contract timeline. 200 to, we had 91-day contract.
Correct,
construct,
yes.
And now we're
Right.
at 291 days.
And 33% over the original project budget.
And we are eating all this, the city of El Centro. Caltrans, I'm not getting in the blame because I've already gone through that.
Correct.
It doesn't matter. But what I'm saying is the city of El Centro, through whatever funding sources we have, are eating this whole cost. Caltrans taking no responsibility. The developer, I mean, the contractor is taking no responsibility. So everything, at least from that side, is our blame, and we eat the cost.
I think at the end of this project, it's more than likely that the city will pay the majority of the contract price. We have had discussions with the district director that opened the door to having them contribute to betterments as was defined in the co-op agreement. We haven't sat down with Caltrans to come up with a cost on that because we want to complete the project first, but I do anticipate that there will be a contribution. How significant that will be is to be determined, and that's something that we want to involve council on through informational reports. This is a critical month, so we're gonna find a lot of information out within the next 2 to 3 weeks about where we sit on the total number for this project.
Okay, one final question. Dudek's expenses, original Dudek contract was $110,000,
Yes.
okay? That was for 91 days. So now we're 291. But their contract has gone up $327,000. So if the timeline has gone up 300%, why is their cost going up 400%?
They not only are billing for their own time, but they're also billing for their geotechnical consultant, as well as for W2, which was the design consultant. So we had to incorporate changes in the design for conflicts that we had out in the field. And so that is identified in that spreadsheet for that particular consultant.
I appreciate your responses, Mr. Gay.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Walker?
Mr. Gay, how do we then go back and capture our lessons learned and do like a root cause analysis to figure out this went really well, this didn't go so well, and this is what we need to avoid next time at all costs?
I think that process is actually already in play. There's definitely discussions internally about lessons learned. That's something that we will share with council. There's also a move on the side of Caltrans to look at what steps they can take in the future, what better steps they can take in the future, and I think that's also going to be relayed to council But I do have definite ideas of how we can approach the next project a lot better. And we discussed that a little bit a couple council meetings ago, but I think there are other things that we can do that we can definitely inform council
I
of.
think that'll be coming back to council within 30, 60 days.
I would say, if you like, we're doing a final takeoff on quantities. We should probably have that information maybe within the next 2 weeks, maybe 2 to 3 weeks, hopefully. So we can give you a really good, hopefully, budget. We'll give you a good budget number on where we're at. And then in terms of lesson learned, 60 days isn't unreasonable. So.
How about the first meeting in May? We come back, the project will be done, completed.
Sure.
Looks good.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure that comes back, Mr. Duran. Thank you.
Mrs. Sass?
I just want to echo some of the comments made by Mr. Gay as it relates to the working relationship that's being established or to try and reestablish with Caltrans. As you know, Mr. Gay did acknowledge that we had this meeting with Lori Borman, and she was very amenable to some of the concerns that we had, and I think she put in place the mechanism to safeguard as best she can any future consequence. She's given us a lot of information. She's also been very receptive to a billing process that would allow us to bill for those things she thinks warrant some payment. So I think we're putting ourselves in the best position, and I want to applaud staff for the effort they're doing in trying to work with us and work with Caltrans to make this become a reality. And the circumstances that led to this are very unfortunate. We understand the concerns that we have about the cost overruns, but given that as it may, when he comes back with lessons learned, I think we'll all be much more informed.
Okay, Mr. Shalva? John, on any typical project, we have a number of change orders for other projects as well today. What's your sense over how much is a normal, percentage-wise, as it relates to overall contract? What would you consider to be normal, unexpected things that you may find, and how much of that can you attribute to things that could have been done better? Are you able to say that right now, or?
Probably better be addressed. It's better to be addressed in a lessons learned report, but I can kind of give an off-the-cuff answer. I mean, for transportation projects, generally, a change order amount that exceeds 15%, at least historically here, since I've been doing work, is on the high side. It's on the high side, and that's contractor related, not necessarily including consulting costs. And I think what we can look at in maybe our analysis is where we can compare our city projects and our cost overruns and compare them to projects in the state right away, and that may be informative to you as well. But 15% is probably on the high side. That's typically what we budget for, between 10 and 15%. So.
Tell me your own internal evaluation process that you go through when you get a request for a change order by a contractor to evaluate if that expenses, the modification is necessary.
Generally,
we're just rubber stamping change orders.
Yeah, generally what we do is we check the, we have bid quantities, and so we start there. We have specifications. We also look at our specifications. Our change orders can come in two different forms. They can come in a lump sum amount, and that's occurred on this job where they'll say, we want to pay you a lump sum for say K-Rail, and so we'll back up and say, okay, look, you want us to approve this lump sum, but we need to verify quantities. So we tend to break those things down. We have 2 or 3 different eyes that are looking at that. And then if it's reasonable, then it gets approved. If it's not reasonable, then it gets denied. And on this particular project, we have had some denials. We're not seeing eye to eye with our quantities yet. We're not seeing eye to eye with some issues related to dirt. And so those are things that are going to have to be worked out on the back end of this contract. But generally, that's the process.
But we do deny them
Yes,
if they're
we
not
have,
justified.
I think if you look at, we've denied some significant ones on this. And the other thing we do is we tend to look for credits. You know, on this job, the contract specified that we put a very decorative rock on the slopes. And it's not meant to cover all the slopes, it's just meant to cover the slopes that we actually impact. And we felt that was something that would be great with the ultimate project, but something that's a little bit of an overkill here. And so we worked with the contractor to find a different material that was cheaper. I mean, if you look at the original bid price for this project, 10% of that bid price was just on decorative rock. So we do look at those things and we try and find savings where we can. So.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the council?
For approval of item 2.
Second.
Moved by Walker, second by Sander on
Did-
item 2.
Did you have any questions on item 6 or not?
Yeah, we're going to talk about it in a
Okay,
minute.
sorry. All right.
So, moved by Walker, second by Sanders. Please ballot.
Motion carried 4-1 no.
Thank you. Let's move on to item 4, rejection of bids for Major D Bond, Phase 1, 2010 Roads Rehabilitation Project, and authorize staff to re-release project to public bidding process once more. We have a presentation by staff. Also, there are a number of people that would like to address the council regarding this issue, so we'll hear from staff first, and then we'll call the public members.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. We'd like to change our recommendation, staff's recommendation, from rejecting the bids to continuing this item to the next scheduled council meeting. I know you're going to
I read that a little differently.
continue item 4 to the next
Special.
Perhaps a
special council meeting.
Thank you.
And I know you're going to have a lot of discussion here about the ARAM process tonight from different contractors, subcontractors. So I thought I'd just go through a little bit of a review of the process, why we use it, what the alternatives are, and that type of thing. This yellow area here indicates where the ARAM process is. And it used to be that you would pave streets and then you'd go out and do an overlay. And you do overlay after overlay. In fact, some areas in town, we've got almost 12 inches, a foot deep of asphalt. And the reason that's occurred is because of reflective cracking. You get alligator cracking, that type of thing, failure to do the base, and you go out and do an overlay. The other choice is to reconstruct the whole road. Basically pull up all that asphalt, redo the base, and reinstall a new road. And this overlay, this ARAM process basically prevents the reflective cracking from occurring so soon. When you overlay a road with a lot of cracks, you'll see within a year, 12 months, reflective cracks. That's due to the temperature changes and expanding, contraction, that type of thing. So the ARAM process is done for almost a quarter of the cost of reconstructing the road. And what we've got here in this drawing here, we've got these cracks here in the existing pavement. Roads like Imperial Avenue and Main Street, we've added a asphalt leveling course where there's ruts, and we've also ground near the curb and gutter so that the asphalt, after it's finished with the ARAM and the overlay, will blend in right with the concrete curb and gutter. So we have this ARAM here, and it consists of an asphalt binder with a uniform 3/8 rock that's laid down, so that the binder's sprayed down and then the rock follows, and then it's compacted with rollers and steel rollers. And this is a photograph here of the process here. Essentially, what we're doing here, the overlay, then we put an overlay on that, typically an inch overlay, and that overlay is essentially floating on top of this ARAM. So that if you do this ARAM process near areas where you stop, signals and that type of thing, you actually get shoving and heaving. So we stop the ARAM process 50 to 150 back from the intersections where there's going to be braking occurring, because it is floating, and so it's a very delicate balance, this ARAM process, where you want it to not reflect the cracks and float essentially and give, but if it fails, if it starts to fail and gives too much, you've got the entire 1-inch overlay peeling up. And in some cases, we just do the ARAM and a slurry seal over it. So the ARAM process is asphalt rubber aggregate membrane. The rubberized binder is sprayed, applied typically around 400 degrees Fahrenheit in a liquid form, and then immediately you follow with the 3/8-inch rock. The binder holds the rock to the surface, and the rubberized component of the binder has crack mitigation qualities. This same system was used on Interstate 8 between Ocotillo and Highway 111, and it's an open-graded process as well out there for better rain flow off the highway. The city's used the process since 2005 on many streets, and we've always used one of two contractors, either ISS or manhole adjusters. And the high-performance spray contains 20% rubber, and due to the temperature at 400 degrees, you typically get smoke, and that's what the issue is here with the Air Pollution Control District permit that's required. And to control the smoke, the California Air Pollution Control District statewide, including Imperial County here, require additional emission control equipment that has demonstrated the control levels of opacity limits. And opacity is essentially a visual view through the area where right after they have the spray bar that's laying down the binder, the asphalt binder, the rubberized binder, they look, and if there's a certain amount of smoke that exceeds this limit, they actually will find the asphalt installer. So this is the rule 401. It's the Imperial County rule, and it says no person shall release or discharge into the atmosphere from any single source of emission whatsoever, and it's based on a period of 3 minutes out of any hour. And it's they call it a Ringelmann number of 1, and basically it's this shade right down here. So you really have to have a process that removes this smoke. Now the process that's permitted throughout the state here is this process right here, where it's a vacuum system. So you have the truck here, and you have the binder that's heated up, and there's a spray bar that you don't see here that's laying down the asphalt binder. And then this entire piece of equipment here is a vacuum where they're sucking up and pulling the smoke through filters. And that's how they control the smoke. And it's a permitted process throughout the state. Now, our two low bidders on this project came in with another agency, Intermountain Slurry Seal, that was going to go ahead and do this process. And they have a different process. They have a patent that they provided me a copy of. This is a page out of the patent, a drawing. And it's a different process where they still have the, they still have the spray bar here that's putting down the asphalt binder. And then they have another spray bar here that sprays out a solution, an atomized solution, and it's a mist. And their theory is that the mist will attract the smoke and do the surface adhesion and collect the smoke, and then the mist falls down onto the liquid asphalt. Now, I contacted them and found out what kind of material they use, and it's a patented blend of plant oils called EcoSorb. And it's primarily diluted with water. It's probably maybe on the order of 1 in 10,000 parts to 1 in 1,000 parts. So it's mainly water with this EcoSorb. And I talked to the manufacturer, and their EcoSorb, it's a very popular product that basically is for odor control. And it has a chemical process where it actually combines with odors, including smoke and asphalt, to reduce the odors, and it's used in applications where you have waste hauling and different areas where you unload solid waste and reload it, that type of thing. So it's a popular product, but I talked to the manufacturer and I described the use that it was being applied to here where they have the mist, and he basically said, well, you have the chemical reaction with the odors, but this is purely, the misting is purely a mechanical action where it absorbs the smoke and then drops on top of the asphalt binder. Now, the important thing with the binder is that you've got to maintain that 400 degrees. And obviously, I asked him, well, what's the boiling point of the EcoSorb? And it's essentially the same as water, so 212 degrees. And so as this mist drops, it's going to evaporate and cool the product, the asphalt binder. We don't know what the impact of that is. So the unknowns of this emission control system, I have to ask, where has this emission control system been previously permitted? It's been around, the Intermountain said that it's been around and been used since 2003, so why hasn't it ever been permitted by the APCD, a district within California? And will the asphalt surface be cooled, creating a skin and prevent proper adhesion to the preheated rock that's laid down right after we put the binder? And what are the long-term effects of adding water to the surface of the binder application prior to the rock being laid? We don't know. Now, looking at the bids that we received on January 27th, we have Hazard Construction, it's the low bidder in Granite Construction. They both had Intermountain as the subcontractor to put the binder down, the ARAM binder. Pyramid Construction, they're the third low bidder, and then Aggregate Products and Cooley Construction. Now the two lowest bidders, as I said, they have Intermountain Slurry Seal, and it's a company totally owned by Granite Construction, and they're going to be the ARAM applicator, and they're not currently permitted by the Imperial County Air Pollution District, but they have applied for a permit. And they believe that they're going to get that permit by March 11th. Now, the art spec said that following the bid opening, that within 3 days they need to provide us with a permit. We gave them an additional 3 weeks. They have not provided that yet, but they claim to they're going to receive that this month. So basically, they failed to submit and also they failed to submit references with projects of the same type of binder application during the past over 2 years old. And we put the 2-year-old requirement because typically our warranty period is 1 year. And we thought, well, we want to look at where they put this ARAM product down and it's over 2 years old, and we want to see how it's performed. And they failed to include references where the proposed emission control system was utilized. The third lowest bidder did not submit a proper bid bond and is therefore responsive. So we're down to the fourth bidder, which is responsive in all areas.
Mr. Hagan, the permitting process with APCD, is that an administrative process where you walk into the office and it's something that can be done over the counter, so they say?
No, I talked to them, and in fact, I believe it was yesterday or today, and they said that they're going to have to actually have a demonstration, and I requested that we be called and witness the demonstration as well, because you could theoretically adjust the temperature and control the smoke, and I'll discuss that a little bit here later. If you drop the temperature down below 330 degrees, you don't have to worry about the smoke. So, but we need the process at 400 degrees. So, additional information that we've received, our contract allows for contractors to substitute the binder, the ARAM applicators, with one that complies with the permit within 3 days of notification. So, on February 23rd, we sent a letter out to Hazard and Granite and gave them this option with a response due date of the 28th of February. Again, Pyramid, the third lowest bidder, was non-responsive due to the lack of the bid bond. Both Hazard and Granite, the two low bidders, declined the option to substitute the binder applicator. And again, aggregate products, the fourth lowest bidder complies with all the permit and contract requirements. In the product reference check for the two low bidders for Intermountain, 4 of the 5 references provided by the contractor used different products than what was requested in our specifications. There's other products out there called terminal blend and a warm blend, and they're different than the ARAM process. One reference did comply with the material, but did not use an emission control device during the application. Somehow they got away with it. APCD didn't get them.
I'm sorry, Mr. Hagan, do you know what county that was done in?
Abraham could answer that question.
Okay.
You need some time to come back.
Hi, good afternoon. That would be the city of Roseville.
Roseville,
Yes.
Placer County,
City.
City of
City of Roseville.
Roseville, County of Placer.
County.
Got it, okay, thank you.
Now, staff contacted Sean Rizzuto at Caltrans, and we requested Caltrans's experience and with the proposed product and emission system, and this is the comments he gave. He stated that Intermountain performed a demo warm mix, and the warm mix, it's still an ARAM process, but they lower the temperature from 400 to 325, and they add this wax, and that changes the viscosity. And as you drop the temperature in the ARAM, it gets more viscous, and it's harder to put the rock down and have it really contact and embed, the rock embed within the ARAM, the binder. So they add this wax, and they did the warm mix process for a project in LA County, and he said that the project lost the rock and the system failed. And then he also stated the granite has not performed any SAMIs, and a SAMI is a stress-absorbing membrane interlayer equivalent to the ARAM process, but SAMI is a Caltrans spec. And SAMI's been around over a decade. I remember hearing about it probably about 13 years ago. And it's the same as ARAM, but it's their process. It's got a little bit, like a % or 2 more rubber, but it's basically the same process. And Granite's, or Intermountain's apparently not doing these processes. And then Sean also said that we explained the process where they use this mist to control the smoke, and he said it's unknown whether the mist will create a skin on the surface that may inhibit rock adhesion properties. It's not sure. And it's unknown whether crack mitigation properties are reduced or what the long-term effects of adding the mist may be. So even if they are able to get the permit, there's questions here. I don't think we want to be the guinea pig. Okay, the schedule, if we were to rebid it, it would delay it approximately 4 months. The construction complete would be in January 2012. If we award it, assuming this Friday, then we'd be able to complete it by September. Now, ARAM has to be applied in ambient temperatures at 105 or less. So we're dealing with the summer months, and the contractor assures me that they can, the fourth lowest bidder, Aggregate Products, assures me that they can get the job done before and work around the temperatures below 105 degrees.
Mr. Hagan, to that point, under the top of the screen, you have the schedule if rebid, August 4th, construction begins. Well, isn't the reality that the temperature on August 4th through about September 30th is likely to be much over 105?
Yes, there's a lot of work, though, a lot of concrete work and other work related to this, and other work besides just the ARAM process. So they could start doing that work as well.
But I mean, you know, the one thing about this, most of the council has been here a long time, and we've been through this road improvements. Thankfully, we've been able to do a number of them. And I understand there's a lot of pre-work, but they usually go in and grind all the streets down in one sweep and then come back and go, right? So you're suggesting they would just do that same thing, and that's why they could get started to that point?
Right. and-
Potentially.
And aggregate products, John Cochran is here tonight. You can ask them that question, get a better feel for it.
Well, I'm more worried about the schedule. I mean, I'm just concerned that maybe August 4th would be a little early to be starting construction. But
True.
I mean, if they completed all the work in 4, 5, 6 weeks, it's certainly possible that October 1st, it's 105 degrees. And so all I'm saying is we potentially could get even a longer delay than that.
Right, and we may be adjusting to nighttime construction as well.
We don't really want to go through construction like this during the holidays again, do we?
No.
I mean, my phone still has backup phone messages from construction over the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays. No.
So staff's recommendation is for council to continue the meeting to the next special scheduled council meeting, and at which time staff recommends award to be made to aggregate products based on the non-responsive bid submittals of the 3 lowest bidders.
Do you have any comments with regard to the fourth bidder, right?
That is aggregate products.
Fifth bidder, I'm sorry.
5th.
They would be responsive also, be considered fully responsive, or would we not do the evaluation down that far?
Staff didn't go to the extent of going to the fifth bidder to
4 was
determine.
enough? Okay, thank you.
At first, we stopped at 3 and then we continued.
Okay.
Any initial questions? I'm going to go ahead and call the members of the public that want to address the council regarding this, but any initial questions? Okay, let me call to the podium Mr. John Corcoran, and then after following Mr. Corcoran, it will be Mr. John Light. If you can make yourself down to the front of the chambers, please. Mr. Corcoran, can you please repeat your name and address for the record?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. My name's John Corcoran, President of Aggregate Products, Inc. We have 2 locally located facilities here in Imperial County. One, our gateway facility out of Calexico, and our other facility out of Salton Sea Beach. Our corporate administrative offices are out of Pico Rivera, 9500, Beverly Road, Pico Rivera, 90660-2135. We got long zips up there. Basically, I wanted to address just a couple of basic components here that I think would be of interest to the City Council, and then be available for any questions both now or after any other issues that may come up to you, to answer anything that you might have regarding this. I went ahead and had sent a letter to Mr. Hagan, the city engineer, and I can distribute that to you if you hadn't seen it already. And pretty much I identified some of the elements in this letter as to why I think it's to the city's best interest to award this contract to us. But before I get into that, I'd like to get into kind of the prospect and the theory of public works bidding. When a contractor comes to bid on any municipal, city, state work, he has to come prepared with certain qualifications in order to be able to be a responsive bidder for that project. There was a form in the bid package that basically actually signature under penalty of perjury, attested and basically stated that, you know, this process has been, I'll read it from the contract document, has been indisputably determined to be in non-compliance with California air quality regulations limiting opacity of emissions unless a permitted emission control device is used during the application. And then it goes on with a little bit more detail. It says failure to fully complete this portion of the bid or provide the foregoing documentation shall constitute the basis to either declare the apparent low bidder's bid non-responsive or disqualify the asphalt rubber applicator from performing work on this contract. As Mr. Hogan stated, we had basically 6 years of experience here. Excuse me, that was 6 years of experience of Granite having knowledge of this requirement that air quality rules and admissions, or air quality rules and regulations applied to this application. And again, for your further information, this was a letter put out in 2005 to basically the contracting community at large in California, identifying that these types of operations created visible emissions that had to be complied with. So this comes as no mystery on this project. In fact, Imperial County has been bid in various cities, including El Centro, Brawley, Coec have been bidding this type of work for 8 years now. So these specifications included the same provision in it, so it comes as no surprise to someone like Granite, who also has a local office here in Imperial County, that these requirements were necessary. This is a copy of that letter that gave full notice to, I think, the community at large, contracting community at large. I have 6 copies there. That these were requirements. So bottom line is, when a contractor comes to bid a job, they need a contractor's license. They can't bid the job and say, I just took my test and, you know, just trust me, in 3 weeks, 4 weeks from now, I'll have my license. The bid is determined to be either responsive or non-responsive at the time of bid submission, and I think it's clearly evident that the bid submissions given by both the first and second bidders were non-responsive. The third bidder being non-responsive for a different reason, which was basically his lack of a bidder's bond. And with that being said, us as the fourth bidder are fully responsive to this. We've had a lot of experience, 17 years, dealing with the city of El Centro. We've done numerous jobs, some of what Mr. Hagan had mentioned, the Main Street improvements, which I think we might have been the first entity in the history of Imperial County to get a favorable editorial from the Imperial Valley Press relative to the expediency of how it was handled and the lack of impact to the public. We've had virtually no change orders. I won't say no change orders, because any contract has some amount of deviation. But we've never run the city of El Centro over on their proposed budget or on the bid that's been proposed. And I see no reason on this project why the dollars would be any different, cumulative dollars would be any different than what was originally submitted. So for all those reasons, and for other reasons which I won't get into that are contained in the letter that I circulated to you, I feel that it would be in the city's best interest to award this contract to us. We're ready, able to immediately begin construction. We have all permits, licenses, and other required documentation and other submittals ready to go. And we will be able to build this project before the onset of summer and have a completed project that won't impact future projects. I think there's a second phase that's contemplated here maybe about this time next year or January of next year. And any delay that would occur to this project could in fact impact that second project as far as having concurrent projects going. So for those reasons that I've related to you, I thank you for your time and patience here on hearing this information. And if you have any questions that you'd like to ask of me right now, I'm willing to answer anything you may have.
Council? Not right now, but we might later. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank
you. John Light.
Oh, one last comment I just had to make kind of as a follow-up for Mr. Light, who's with the Laborers International Union of North America. Our company pays prevailing wage or better than prevailing wage for all the crafts that we're involved with, which involve laborers, operating engineers. We had discussions with Brandon Lopez from the Center of Contract Compliance, and Mr. Light will reiterate this point, that as it relates to award to our company for this particular contract, there would be no issues relative to labor compliance issues on the wages we pay or anything related to performing this work.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Light, can you restate your name and address for the record, please?
Yeah, my name is John Light. I'm with Honorable Mayor and City Council. My name is John Light. I'm with the Laborers Union. We are stationed out of El Centro here. I've got a hiring hall here. My personal place of residence is Beaumont, California, but I commute out here 2-3 times a week, take care of the area. I'm basically up here just to confirm what John has said. They've got a good history, API's got a good history of paying prevailing wage, and we've got no problems with them as far as payment of prevailing wage. Any questions?
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Mark Birch.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Council members.
Can you restate your name and address for the record, please, on the
Mark
microphone? Can you restate your name and address?
Address 10500 South Harlan Road, French Camp, California.
Thank you.
This project that bid on January 27th, we called prior to the bid. And to give you some background on my history of where I come from, I was the general manager of International Surfacing Systems, who was license holder through the patented device Manhole owns. And I was with that company for 19 years, so my experience with ARAMs goes back to 1992. At all my time in International Surfacing Systems, even though we had a licensing agreement with manhole adjusting, we never, ever, in my existence of that company, and I started that company from the ground up, we never had a permit for the mission control device. We had a permit for the authority to construct, which is for the blending facility, which is the blending plant, and we had permits for our portable engine registration program. Those are the only permits we've ever had. We've had air quality on our projects numerous times, and we've never been asked for a permit for the mission control system. It's never been asked for, and it's
Mr.
never.
Birch, I'm sorry, who are you with?
I am with Intermountain Slurry Seal.
Oh, thank you. I missed that.
I'm the California area manager
Intermount, okay.
for the
thank
chip
you.
seal division.
Thank you.
We understood the specs where they required the permits. We called the local air district to inquire about the permits. We explained what we had, and they said that there was no permitting required for our process. We do not have, our device does not filter the smoke, and therefore it was not a permittable device. When we were notified on January 27th that we were low bidder, we contacted their quality district to ask about permitting because the city was asking us about the permits. And once again, and that we have an email from Emmanuel Sanchez that I can provide to the council members and Honorable Mayor, that we were told verbatim, as per our conversation, the mobile equipment which you mentioned that is used to lay the rubber asphalt is not permitted through our agency. Mobile sources are permitted through CARB, which are the pony motors on equipment. Our equipment does not have pony motors. You mentioned that CARB did not require you to permit this type of equipment. To be on the safe side, I would give them a call. Here's the link. That is for the CARB permits for the portable engines. We do not have that, so we don't pertain to that at all. On January 31st, we notified Hazard, which is the prime contractor, of the permitting issues and how we could not fulfill the permitting issues because they weren't required, we were exempt. January 31st, same day, Hazard sent an email to the city explaining our situation and where we stood with their quality district. On February 1st, Abraham with the city of El Centro notified our project engineer they were going to give us a 3-week extension to where we could see if there was indeed a permit required or if we were exempt. 2 days later, on February 3rd, the city of El Centro notified Granite Construction and Hazard Construction that they were going to recommend that rejection of all bids due to the living wage versus Davis-Bacon issue. So as of February 3rd, we were under the assumption that the bids were all going to be rejected, and this job was going to be rebid. We continued the pursuit of the permitting with the Air Quality District because we knew that if it rebid, we wanted to have this in hand. If indeed we had to have something, we wanted to have it. Granite Construction complies with all laws everywhere they go. They're a nationwide company, and they're not a fly-by-night company. On February 18th, we got a definitive answer from the air quality people stating they've decided to create a first permit of this kind. We were not permitting the equipment, we were permitting the process. They have never issued a permit for the process before, ever in Imperial County. That day we completed the application, we sent in our money for the payment in full. That was on the 18th of February. On the 23rd of February, we got a letter from Hazard, from the city, stating that they were going to ask for substitution of their subcontractor because we were non-responsive. Now you gotta remember, we were told on the 3rd of February by the city that they were gonna recommend rejection of all bids, but we kept the process going. On February 24th, we contacted the air quality people to see where we're at in the permit process, and they told us we should have a permit in hand by March 11th. Today we contacted them again, and they're thinking we might have the permit by the end of this week. There's a huge difference between the first bidder and the fourth bidder. It's $355,000 and some change. In today's tough economic times, and when you realize what's going on with crude oil in the Middle East, things are just going to keep escalating out of control. If it rebids, it's going to cost the city a tremendous amount of money. And if it doesn't get awarded the low bidder, it's going to cost the city a tremendous amount of money. There's been a lot of mistruths spoken in the presentation in regards to warm mix asphalt rubber. You must understand the history of asphalt rubber. There's been 2 contractors in California that have controlled the entire state since 1995. Granite Construction tried getting into asphalt rubber. They've been involved in asphalt rubber for hot plant supply, which you pave with, since the mid-90s. But in the mid-2000s, Granite came up with a patented process. They bought all brand new equipment, they got involved in it. The problem is they didn't have the people. So they sold the equipment after a couple years. They didn't have any project failures. There was nothing associated with project failures. Their problem was they couldn't produce enough production, they couldn't meet budgets, and it was costing them more money than they were making. They sold the asphalt rubber spray equipment, got out of the business. I left International Surfacing Systems in January of 2010, and I am an employee of Intermountain. Granite wanted to get back into the asphalt rubber business. They know that's my background, and here's where we're at today. We have all the equipment, we have all the people, and the way I look at this bid is if we produce a product in specification and our emission control system complies with local air quality rules, there's nothing that says we can't do the job. All these misconceptions about this mister adding a skin. If you spray asphalt rubber onto the roadway and you have a roadway temperature of 120 degrees and that material starts out at 400 degrees, within a matter of seconds, that material is cooling down to pavement temperature. It's not going to stay at 400 degrees. You're talking about a membrane about 3/16 of an inch thick. So when that material hits that pavement, it's immediately cooling down to that pavement temperature. So the idea of the mister system creating a skin is false too. This mister system is about 1/10 of what a mister system delivers in an outdoor restaurant area. And I'm sure you've all been in areas like that where they have the outdoor misters. They're not saturating you. It's cooling the air. They're putting down about 10% the amount of water going in those mister systems into our process. It is indeed a patented process because we had to find a way to get around the other patent. But as I state, we're putting down asphalt rubber in specification, we're complying with air quality regulations, and there's nothing that should say we can't put down our material. Our permits will be in place, and I can't see how the city could spend that additional amount of money, $350,000, on a belief that the process doesn't work. It does work. There's never been a failure associated with it. And when it comes down to the presentation stated that Granite has never obtained a permit, it's like I said, with international surfacing systems, in my 19 years in that company, we never obtained a permit for the process or for the equipment.
Mr. Edney?
Sir, two questions. You just, you just said that you talked to Imperial County APCD and you originally were going to have a permit by March 11th. And then you talked to them today or yesterday, and now you might have a permit by Friday.
What the March 11th deadline was, they said at the latest.
Okay, but you're getting a permit.
Absolutely.
Okay. So the bid documents very clearly stated that you needed to provide, once you were notified you were the low bidder, within 3 days.
5 days.
5 days, okay. Is it 5 days past?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so you do not have a permit, and it's more than 5 days past the notification period.
I explained that the air district themselves did not have a permit for us to apply for. If they would have had a permit for us
But
to
you're getting a
apply for,
permit.
now we are, after their district has had meetings to discuss what we're doing. Now, yes, we're applying for it.
Where
We've been applied,
is
it's under review right
your
now.
process, Intermountain's process, been applied in Imperial County?
It hasn't been applied in Imperial County.
Okay, so do we know what's going to work here?
Absolutely. We've offered it to double the warranty to a 2-year period.
But my point is, sir, I think you recognize, and if you've been in the business for 20 years, would you agree that putting down pavement in Imperial County is different than putting it down in a lot of other counties in in Southern California?
We have very hot climates in the valley too. Here's another issue that I don't know if the council's aware of.
My
but in
question
December of
was,
2010,
is there a difference in laying asphalt in Imperial County and the life expectancy in comparison to other counties in Southern California?
Absolutely.
Okay, and it's a significant difference for a variety of reasons, not just the heat.
It's better. You don't have the freeze-thaw cycles.
Sir, I find that really hard to believe because I don't think there's one Imperial County resident in this whole county that would suggest that we don't have a much more significant problem with our roads and cracking and their deterioration than many other counties. You can put a road down in San Diego County where I grew up in La Mesa and it'll last for 50 years. You put a road down here, and ain't no road going to last 50 years down here because we have clay soil, we have constant movement with the ground and earthquakes, we have complete heat. So, sir, I'm sorry, when you suggest to me that it's the same, I don't agree with you.
I'm saying the process is identical. What I'm saying, when you talk about conditions in the desert, there's much more severe conditions with freeze-thaw cycles. You don't have freeze-thaw cycles down here. That's what's, asphalt has problems with cold temperature. That's what really creates cracking. Your freeze-thaw cycle creates more cracking.
That's water, right?
Pardon?
Water creates more problems.
Well, drainage issues can create a problem too.
Okay, well,
But you have one of the better climates, trust me. I mean, San Diego obviously is ideal, but I would take the hot weather over cold weather any day of the week if I had pavements.
in laying pavement maybe, sir, but
No,
look,
in pavement life.
no, I don't agree with that at all because I've been to most of the other counties. And I've seen roads that have been put in for 15, 20, 25, 30 years. And I've lived here in this county for 28 years, and I've been all over this county. And there's no way a road, an asphalt road, holds on its life better in Imperial County than it does in those other counties. I don't agree with
I
that.
beg you to visit Truckee, Reno, any of those areas.
I
that
said
have
Southern
heavy
California,
freeze-thaw.
sir.
May I ask
Okay.
may I ask a
But
question?
my other issue that I'd like to state is this project, the last project that bid, the identical project that bid in December of 2010, International Surfacing bid the project without the permit in hand. The project was awarded, they never obtained the permit, and they still proceeded with it.
Was it spec'd into the contract documents?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Walker? Thank you, sir.
This,
What-
this,
Did you have questions for the gentleman?
it probably is a question for Mr. Campos or perhaps Mr. Hagan. The bid documents were released roughly when?
December.
Okay, they were released in December. The Air Pollution Control District permit was clearly stated within bid documents. It was a requirement.
Correct.
Okay. did the bid document also say if you have any questions about any of the requirements, if you have any questions about specifications, anything like that, contact us within a certain amount of time?
The notice inviting bids has language in there to contact the city engineering department for any clarification.
You may have to speak up a little bit closer to the mic because it's hard to hear you.
The notice inviting bids for the document is basically page 3 and 4 of the specifications, has language that addresses any questions to the city engineer. This is part of the RFI question portion of the period. The staff would issue an addendum at that time answering the questions so that all bidders have the same type of information.
Okay, so if any of the project proponents here had a question with regard to the permit required by the Air Pollution Control District, they had between when the project bid documents were released in December and when they were received sometime in January to bring that to your attention or to Mr. Hagan's attention.
Correct.
At what point in time did either Hazard, Granite, the company that Mr. Birch works for, at what point in time did they bring to the city's attention that they were questioning the requirement for the Air Pollution Control District requirement?
They do not.
Mr. Sullivan?
A couple of things. Did you have a bid conference where you invited everybody in, you talked about the process to everyone at one time?
Not in this project.
Okay, but you did stipulate in the bid, request for bids, the information and what everyone would need.
Yes.
Okay. The gentleman just spoke a moment ago, and he said that there was a difference of about $350,000 between the fourth and the first. If you were to add in prevailing wage, what would that make that total amount, that difference that he's claiming that would be made if he left it at it is right now? One of them, I don't remember which one said prevailing wage, it was like $100 and some thousand more that they were going to add. And someone else said that they didn't figure it out right now.
The difference after including prevailing wage for the first and the fourth contract would be $240,000.
About $240,000.
So the difference would be reduced from the 355 to 240.
But the one person didn't meet the bid specifications.
Correct.
Okay. So my understanding, since I've worked in purchasing, if you don't meet the bid specification, you're automatically dropped out of the process.
Correct.
So anything else?
No.
Mr. Questions? Okay, well, Mr. Edney?
Mr. Hagan, can I ask you a question? You have how many engineering licenses?
I have essentially 5 different PEs.
Okay. And you've been doing this for how long? Between this city and the Coachella Valley and elsewhere?
Over 30 years.
Okay. The question I asked earlier about the different conditions in Imperial County and the life expectancy, do you see there's merit in that there is a huge difference?
Absolutely. I mean, you just look at the foundations and for the houses where they have to have the post-tensioning. The expansive soils, the close water table, all that contributes to failure. You look in countryside and the watering of the parkway and how it comes up through the pavement there with the alkali. I mean, it's a huge issue on our pavements.
Okay. Thank you for making me look a little better.
Thank you.
But let me ask a follow-up question to that, Terry, so that I can understand the process. Well, that's okay. Never mind. The recommendation on the staff report is that we reject all bids. Staff has since changed its recommendation so that if the desire of the council to act on this, we had to adjourn our meeting to another day. And I think the tentative date that we're looking at is Friday. I cannot be here for a noon meeting on Friday. I would have to either be at 11 o'clock, and I have to be at my regular job by 11:30, so that may not work, or 1 o'clock if it's going to be Friday. So what's the desire of the council? You want to continue this item until Friday, or do we want to?
What time would you be available on Friday?
Friday will be available at 1 o'clock.
I could concur with one. I have a morning meeting that's pre-scheduled, and so.
It's new agenda.
1 o'clock would work.
Okay. Does that work for everyone? So that's the consensus of the council. We need to,
I'm sorry, I wasn't.
so I think the consensus of, do we need to vote on continuing this matter until Friday?
Well, or some other date. My suggestion is that you would adjourn this item, we would repost it for the correct action to take place, which would be to award the contract to the fourth low bidder and find that the other bids were non-responsive. So our office would need to prepare the appropriate resolution to do that, and you would need a new staff report from the engineering department, basically outlining the information they provided you today.
So for this item, do we need to take any official action to table it, or we just table it?
Well, you need
Just
to
continue?
adjourn it to another, you can either adjourn it to another date and time before your next meeting, or you can adjourn it or have it continue to the next meeting.
I would propose a motion to adjourn this item and ask the mayor to call a special meeting for this item on March, is that 4th?
4th.
At 1 p.m.
Or a continuation of this meeting, correct?
Well,
We'll probably repost it.
probably it should, we need to have the correct item identified. This item was identified as rejecting all bids and rebidding the project. You were actually going to award the bid based on the finding that the
We haven't made that
three low bidders are non-responsive.
But do we have to have a special council meeting, or is it an adjournment of this meeting?
Well, I
to
think you
Friday?
can do an adjourned meeting. We would just have to post the agenda within 24 hours of today's meeting with the correct action to take place.
Okay. So is that the real motion, Mr. Edney?
Yeah.
Okay. Motion by Edney,
Second by Solomon.
second by Sanders. Please
No,
ballot.
Solomon.
Oh, Solomon, please ballot.
Motion carried 5-0.
Thank you. I have been doing so well, and now 7:30, we haven't gotten out of the consent agenda yet. Another item on the consent agenda that was pulled for discussion is item number 5, ratification of change order and accept the completion report regarding the Adams Avenue Rehabilitation Project, and I'm not sure who pulled that item for.
I think it was a combo poll from Walker and Mr. Edney, but again, the same refrain. We have change order requests for this item. We're wondering if staff can provide some additional clarification on why we have change orders on item number 5, and then we'll come back for approval of change orders on item number 6. So,
This report is to ask for a change order, as you mentioned, for $83,799 and 74 cents for the Adams Avenue project, rehabilitation project. The original contingency amount was 10%, if I remember correctly. We're a little bit over that, closer to 14%. The reason for the change order, the vast majority of it, about 50,000 or so of the 80-some thousand, was for additional work that occurred near the west portion of the project to match the elevations of the existing roadway, which was really high, to a new curb and gutter that was installed in that area that was not addressed in plans.
Mr. Campbell, can I stop you right
yes.
there? Why was it not addressed in the plans? That's part of what amazes me with change orders from time to time, is why there wasn't this pre-anticipation or understanding of, so why wasn't it captured in the plans and then required a cost overrun or change order?
The project is an ERA project, and what that means during what happened during the ERA grant procurement process, staff created the plans in an order of 2 weeks, a week, in order to be ready and qualify for the ERA project. That's basically, that area fell through the crack in the preparation of the plan.
So if we'd had a little more time, it would have been done a little differently.
Yeah, we didn't have time to go in RFP. Project was
Okay.
in staff really quick.
Okay, well, with that explanation, if there are no further questions, I'd move to approve item number 5.
Okay. Moved by Walker, second by Edney, please ballot.
Motion carried 5-0.
Item number 6, approval of change order number 5 for Hazard Construction regarding the Dogwood Signalization Project.
Mr. Mayor, unless any of my colleagues have a different view, I think we spent significant time going over this item in relation to the item 2. And I think at least I'm clear. I don't want to make the motion because I will be voting against it, but
Well, except that I think the reason why I would want to ask about this is the fact that isn't Hazard one of the proponents that we just had on the last item?
proposal. They submitted the second proposal.
Submitted a proposal on the Measure D funding.
Yes, Hazard is, Hazard was the first, they were the lowest bid for the Measure D.
Well, since Ms. Walker brings that up, the owl mitigation, is that something new? We didn't
No,
expect
no.
owl mitigation, or because of the
No,
extra time?
the owl mitigation was something that we had to be proactive about because there was, we awarded the contract in January, and February was the beginning of owl season. We had to make sure that we did additional work the contractor just couldn't get in there and start doing work. We had to cover drain pipes and things like that. They had to go through special owl, we all went through an owl
Sensitivity training?
and so that was just an additional change that wasn't expected for this particular project. Because
Do you feel
we
bad about
anticipated.
the owls?
I'm sorry?
Why, you went through sensitivity training.
I am extremely sensitive
Okay.
to our friends, the burrowing owls, very.
If you will, is that because of the timing on this contract when it came out, we had to make sure there was a biologist out there making sure those owls didn't nest. Otherwise, we would have even had.
Yeah, we were not going to delay, I mean, even though this project was delayed, we had been through that the year prior, if you recall. I wasn't going to delay this project for owls again, so.
Well, I certainly appreciate the
Yeah.
state of California's willingness to protect the owl. Now, they may be laying off significant amount of law enforcement in this state, significant amount of teachers in this state, but by gosh, let's make sure that we protect those owls in their mating season.
Correct.
Okay, well, on that happy note, I'd move for approval of this change order.
Moved by Walker,
Second.
second by Edney. I'm sorry, Sanders.
Motion carried 4 yes, 1 no.
Hey, we're moving right along.
Now to item 11, and it's only.
All right, let's see.
Mr. Mayor, I think it's appropriate to note that during this last discussion as it relates to our consent agenda, our on-again, off-again decision to either reject all bids or throw out bids or continue, I hope this process does not taint the image of the city. I just hope it does not. Up to this point, we've done things fairly well, but I just hope this process does not taint it.
Thank you, Ms. Walker. Let's move on to item number 11. We have a report by Ms. Piedra as it relates to the site selection for the temporary relocation of the El Centro Public Library.
Yes, good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. The item before you is actually to seek your direction as it pertains to the potential library site for the temporary relocation of the El Centro Public Library. As you are aware, during the April earthquake, the public library building sustained some damage. And after going through an evaluation process, there was a need to close down the facility. Currently, the library is providing services on a limited basis at the community center. And per your direction, it is your interest to expand those library services. And given the fact that we cannot occupy the El Centro Public Library building, there was a need to solicit or search for a temporary relocation of the library. In January, we actually put out a request. We primarily used the Imperial Valley Press to solicit temporary space ranging from 8,000 to 10,000 square feet. In response to that request, we actually received 6 potential sites for consideration for the temporary relocation of the library. In this presentation, I just have the buildings that were actually included as part of this response that we received from the community. The first picture that you see here is Furniture Palace, the owner of this building. She has approximately 19,000 square feet within this building, and her interest was to provide some space within this building for the temporary relocation. I would like to note that we did do site visits to all these sites. We actually had Mr. Roland Banks, the library director, our building official, and yours truly visit these sites to look at the way the site was configured and also to determine what type of potential tenant improvements we would need to do to the site. Also to look at the availability of parking for these buildings. So the first one is located at 742 West Main Street. Again, this is the Furniture Palace building. The second site that you see here is actually in between the Phoenix uniforms and also the gym. This is the former location of the Imperial Furniture Stores. This was another location. There's 10,000 square feet that is available at this particular site. The other site that was also submitted for consideration, however, this is a little bit different. It's the what we identify as the Kuiper building located at 1850 West Main Street. This is a two-story building, and so total, this building has 11,500 square feet available. However, it is a two-story building, and the size is split up. Mr. Kuiper indicated that this would be a potential maybe consideration for the council should you decide to maybe look for another location, a more permanent location for the library. He does have a 1-acre site to the north of this existing address that he indicated could be a possible expansion for the city to consider. So he presented this in the form of perhaps maybe the city considering a more of a permanent location versus a temporary relocation. Then we also had interest from the former, the realtor that is actually trying to find a tenant for the former Big Lots building. Now, this is a building where you have 30,000 square feet, and so there would be a tremendous amount of work in terms of tenant improvements to get to the 10,000 square feet. In terms of the interest, we didn't see that significant interest, one, because we're contemplating a 3-year lease, and to go through the process of doing the tenant improvements, the broker didn't feel that there was enough time frame to actually capture the amount of possible tenant improvements to prepare this building for the use of the city. Then we had also a response from another real estate broker for a site within the Valley Plaza Shopping Center as well, which is in between the Clear Talk and also the shoe store that's to the corner here, the Skechers. And it's right basically in front of the Starbucks. It's on Imperial Avenue. It's 1523 Main Street. This is the address, but it's actually facing Imperial Avenue. Now, this particular building has 11,800 square feet available. You have an interest through the front part of this building, which is facing Imperial Avenue, and there's also entrance through the back, right next to where the Big Lots building. This building is actually split. There's the entrance to the front, and there's square footage available through the other side of the building, and then you have additional square feet available through this entrance here. And so there's plenty of parking space. However, the space within the building is split. And so that's the situation with this particular building. Then the final one, which is the one that staff is suggesting that we consider for possible relocation, is at the Valley Center Point Plaza. This is the site that's basically next to the Imagine Schools site, and it is the former Miller's Outpost building. Within this building, you have approximately 14,000 square feet that's available to relocate the library. There is tenant improvements that are going to have to be made to this particular building, and at this time, we haven't pursued in terms of tenant improvements. given that we have not obtained any direction on any particular site, and that's why we're here tonight, so that we can discuss these potential sites and hopefully receive your direction. But in terms of our site visits, in terms of rental information that we have received to date, in terms of the parking, this is the site that we would consider possibly working with the landlord to accommodate the library on a temporary basis. Again, we're looking at a 3-year lease. And this concludes my presentation. If there's any questions, we'd be more than happy to answer those.
Thank you, Marcela.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say, and maybe if you'll allow Ms. Sanders to go next, Ms. Sanders and I worked together with the city staff on a task force that this council put together to try to resolve an interim solution to the library, and I want to thank the staff for not only a lot of hard work, but a lot of quick work. We recognize that the community is concerned about this, and I think the council has expressed a concern about this. And so we looked at a variety of things. We came up, had a few meetings in which we came up with first what the scope was and what we thought we were going to need. And then staff gratefully went out and processed through potential available properties. I will say, from my point of view, I believe that overall this is the best potential location based on all the factors combined. And I think as we looked at a number of the buildings and some had good points about this, and some had other good points about this. And I think collectively, when you added in the interior, the exterior, the location, the parking, this building became obvious that it probably fit the needs of the city, most importantly. And I'll confirm with Mr. Hernandez, but we have not obviously instructed staff to begin any negotiations, but since this is real property negotiations, those would actually take place on a closed session item.
Well, typically, under the Brown Act, you are allowed to discuss price in terms of the payment.
Right. So, and I bring that up because Ms. Sanders and I and the staff wanted to get this to the council to get a direction. There will be further dialogue, and obviously a final decision cannot be made until negotiations are moved forward and some resolution is brought back to the council as far as the exact cost of not only tenant improvements, but lease rents and terms and things like that. But because we knew the public was interested in, and because we knew that we didn't want to spend a lot of time negotiating with a lot of different property owners, we wanted to get a direction from the council, and maybe Ms. Sanders could add to my comments.
I think at this point, Mr. Edney, or Mr. Mayor, if I may, we would just see if the council had any questions regarding either the staff's report and/or any of the comments that you've made that relates to the direction we would hope the council will entertain.
Thank you, Ms. Sawa.
Yeah. When you were up, Mrs. Piedra, you had talked about, you can go ahead and sit. You had talked about, fixing up the facility, and I was curious to know if that's going to be something that the city is going to be doing, or is it something that we're going to negotiate with the real estate person to?
As far as paying for the possible tenant improvements, actually, that's going to be subject to negotiation. There's obviously the two options. One is the city could actually do those tenant improvements at this time.
But does that cut down on our price a little bit if we're doing the tenant?
Yes, because otherwise, if the tenant improvements are done by the landlord, then obviously they would have to finance those costs. So there's two options: either we can do them, or the landlord can do them.
Okay. The other question, since you're there, is there a penalty for leaving early? I mean, are we going to be able to have some flexibility just in case the Martin Luther King facility over there on Adams is completed earlier? Can we move out of that and into this without having to pay two places?
And I believe those are all issues that once we start negotiating with the landlord, that we can look into and determine.
Another thing I would be interested in is the insurance, the type of insurance that we're going to be required, or is it going to be fully upon the person that owns the building to supply the insurance? I doubt that. But what I also want to mention is that I agree with Mrs. Sanders and Mr. Edney. I've had a chance to take a look at the mall, and I think it's more accessible for The bus, it has a outlet out in front. The people that are on bikes, on foot, because there's homes in that area, cars, there's adequate parking spaces, and I think it would allow us an opportunity to continue to function with the essential operation and other things that we need to take place right now to get us up and running. I see it as an ideal place for us at this particular time.
Thank you, Mr. Solomon. Ms. Walker, do you have comments?
The owner of this property actually contacted the city, I think, several months ago, and was very, very interested in
Yes.
courting the city and asking if we could please consider their location. And the owner seemed to be particularly willing to accommodate and facilitate our movement to the library into this location. So let's
Yes,
hope that
that's
that
right.
goodwill extends into the lease negotiations. I think this is a far superior site to any of the locations that have been presented. I very much appreciate Ms. Sanders and Mr. Edney and staffs getting right onto this project and finding us a location for this library, because it's just too important to drag this out much longer. I did have a question either for you, Ms. Piedra, or Mr. Banks, as to whether or not the library board was consulted and whether or not they are part of the process and concur with this site selection. Outstanding. Then I say full steam ahead and let's get the building open.
I agree. I think my comment was going to be in regards to the library board and having their input and concurrence, and since that appears that happens, is this
I just want to, Mrs. Pedro may suggest that the council, you point out their funding streams and when the money would become available and actually the
Yes,
timing. I know that there was a concern, as you recall, Mr. Edney, on something being happening by June, and I don't know that we're going to be able to meet that timeline. We will be able to do something shortly after summer, but not by June itself.
Yes, and if I may clarify that point, thank you, Councilmember Sanders, for bringing that up. As you may recall, when we we are in the process of drafting our annual action plan through the Community Development Block Grant, and this is the funding source that we are considering using for the lease, to cover the lease. The way the timing works with our HUD funds is, yes, we do operate on a fiscal year which starts July 1. However, we don't have access to those funds until September. Therefore, what I would suggest is if you provide us the direction that you want us to proceed with this landlord, they need obviously a letter of intent from us. However, we are going to include in that letter of intent that it's going to be subject to the approval of us receiving HUD approval, and it will be contingent upon that approval. That way, the city, in the event that something were to happen where HUD is not in agreement with our action, there's a way for us to be able to retract on that letter of intent.
Okay, thank you. Does this require a vote?
We would like to have that direction.
I think Mr. Edney wants a follow-up question.
Well, I just wanted to follow up on a comment Mr. Solomon made, and obviously, property leases is what I do and spend most of my time is. In regards to the question of flexibility, I think as a standard, everything is negotiable. In regard to a commercial lease, I think the one problem about having flexibility is it detracts from our ability to get the best rate, because there's a cost to that developer if for instance, we signed a 36, or the project owner, we signed a 36-month lease but had the ability to get out after 12. He has no ability to finance, leverage, bank on the asset as far as the lease is an asset, and he can go to a bank and borrow based on the income he's going to receive. So is it possible? And I think certainly Ms. Piedra can investigate all possibilities, but of course there's a cost to that. If he's got less, if we have more flexibility, he's likely, in my experience, to want increased rental rates to cover that flexibility. So
What I was thinking about, though, Mr. Edney, was like a few months, not a couple of years, you know, because I know that would be a problem, but I thought if we were going down the back side of our agreement, instead of having, let's say, 2 years, 10 months, we had 2 months, we're ready to move over, would we still have to pay for those last 2 months, is what I was saying.
Well, as I said, it'll be interesting to see how negotiations go.
We'll see.
So, would I like to make a motion to
Yes,
So the,
give authorization to staff?
yes. Yes, a second, Mr. Solomon.
Move by
was-
Solomon, second by Sanders, please ballot.
Motion carried 5-0.
We have an added item on the agenda that we added earlier, a resolution of the City Council of the City of El Centro authorizing the issuance, sale, and delivery by the redevelopment agency of the City of El Centro, excuse me, of the agency's tax allocation bonds, Series 2011, and the taking of certain actions in connection therewith. We have a presentation by our Finance Director.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Yes, as the state continues to move forward with the intention to disestablish the RDA's redevelopment agencies and take away the revenues that normally would come to the city's redevelopment agency for local projects, our intention is to be a step ahead of the state, and in doing so, we have determined, we have done an analysis to determine if the city has any capacity, the RDA has any capacity to issue RDA bonds to support projects, pending projects that the city has. At this point in time, we have determined, based on an initial review, again, expediting the process, that we have sufficient tax increment revenues with a capacity of initially $4.2 million. However, that number, we're still reviewing it. It might change in the future, next 2 days.
Up or down?
Again, we're working really fast, trying to expedite the process, and we wanted to bring to council for your approval and consideration a possible bond issuance. The proceeds would be used to finance public improvements which constitute redevelopment activity within the project area, and one of the projects is the Martin Luther King Park redevelopment project. We are asking for your approval of a resolution authorizing the issuance, sale, and delivery by the redevelopment agency of the City of El Centro of the agency's tax allocation bonds, Series 2011, and the taking of certain actions in connection therewith.
Thank you, Ms. Salcido. Questions from council?
Ms. Salcido, City of El Centro has taken a number of actions with regard to redevelopment agency activities, tax allocation bonds, and what have you. What happens if the state determines correctly that they cannot just abolish redevelopment agencies? What happens to all of the actions that we've taken within the last 6 weeks related to redevelopment?
When in reality, the council would have to determine if they want to move forward with those actions as they stand, or, okay, your question was if the state does not move forward with...
Let's just say the state realizes that they do not have the legal authority to disband redevelopment agencies. Would there be an alternative proposal coming back to the council with regard to any actions taken thus far within, say, the last 6-week period?
Absolutely. I think the council would be presented with the a reconsideration of all those projects. Do they want to move forward in the way they stand, the way they were approved during these rush to save RDA monies or not?
So this is very defensive at this moment. However, we have options down the road if
For example,
redevelopment agencies are.
for example, this bond issue, if we have the capacity, we have projects that are in need of additional funds, and this would be a way of financing those projects.
Okay. Very
But,
good.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, but we would not do anything to retract from them. I thought this would be placing us in very good stead. For example, if we have the money committed, then we would be in good stead to either continue this project. We might be able to divert the money to something else, but we certainly wouldn't retract it now, would we? Are you suggesting that, Ms. Salcido?
Retracting it?
Well, I mean, we wouldn't say, all right, we've issued these bonds, and now that the state isn't going to take the money, we're not, we want to repeal the bond. No, we wouldn't be doing that.
Oh, no, absolutely
Okay.
not.
No, but
No, I
I think, Mr. Mayor, if you will, let's be clear. We've always been frugal with the way we've spent money, and we now have found that we have 4.2 million of capacity.
Yes.
We, in a normal situation, would probably not be using up all our capacity at this stage. We talked about when we refinanced that bond that we wouldn't go out for another bond. We are, in effect, being forced to take action to protect, I think we've all said this, to protect local dollars and to make sure projects get done.
Right.
I suppose if the whole thing went away, we'd already sold the bond, well, great, our projects move forward and we get the band. Normally, I think as a council and staff, we would not be recommending immediately going out to take this bond. It wouldn't have come, but we're being forced to by the state to do it. We probably would have, I think Mr. Durant has said over in previous council meetings, that at some point down the line, we would be looking at an RDA bond as more capacity came available.
Mayor, if I may, it's, if you'll recall how we arrived at the $30 million bond we did 3 years ago, you spent almost 2 years discussing projects, looking at our financial structure, making sure everything was in place. Not unlike Mr. Campos' comment about the air money. We've been put on this tight timeline in respect to assuring that the community receives the funds it's indicated that they want to have in the redevelopment area due to the actions of the state. But also, what we are not doing is, well, I guess, we're trying to take a conservative approach, and I'm going to use a phrase that Ms. Ocido and I have been using lately. This is a work in progress for the simple reason is we don't want to ask for overcommitment, so we may be back as we get a better number on our capacity.
Right.
There is the potential that our capacity actually may be a bit more. And so before we actually go to the sale, we may be back here asking for the additional capacity so we can have the additional sale. But we're not going to attempt, we're not going to push the limit to find out where that end is. We'll still be in a conservative position. It just normally, we would have spent, well, Ms. Piedra and I were having a discussion, we would have had a discussion about extending the project life, and et cetera. You spent 2 years before, we would be spending a year or so going through that same process to making sure we've covered it. But all the projects that we're talking about here, you're already dealing with. Right. And what we're going to do is be able to get those projects moved along rather than phasing them, getting them all done.
You know, even though we're forced to do this, I mean, based on the action the state's saying, in some ways, it's put us in a better position because of the upgrade of our bond rating, and because every sign is that going down to the future, the next 4 or 5 years, that interest rates are going up, it actually is providing, at least on that side, a benefit for us to be able to bond for this money at a pretty reduced,
Thank you.
didn't you give us an estimate of where you thought the bond interest rate would come in at?
4.25.
Well, and below 5%.
Yeah. And I agree that we're being forced to do this, and I think every other city that I know about is doing the same thing. So can someone help me, I know Mr. Shan has a comment, but can somebody help me understand when the state projects a $1.7 billion savings, where is that money coming from?
Well, if I can, I'll try to answer that. First of all, that $1.7 billion is an estimate based upon the Department of Finance back in January, which the LAO, which is the Legislative Analysis Office, has not been able to validate. So there's a problem with that. But the idea is they would take up any unencumbered tax increment and reutilize that for a number of budget balancing efforts at the state level. And that was the intent in January. So they would be able to, if it was not committed, such as what we're talking about here, well, what is the debt service increment that we're talking about here is on average about $1 million over the life, about $1 million a year. Well, they would pick up that $1 million from the city of El Centro and much more from others and redistribute it. As late as several days ago, the legislative general counsel has said, and he used the term, this is problematic because it is still redevelopment dollars, and Prop 22 says you can't do that. Yeah. So this is a defensive move. We think that we're correct that it is not available, but we also don't want to lose the opportunity and have the community lose a project, or possibly having to second fund it again out of their own general fund dollars in some time in the future when this opportunity was available. Remember, these tax dollars are local tax dollars.
Thank you, Mr. Duran. Mr. Solomon?
Yes. Mr. Durant, as you and I have a few times talked about the stock market, let me continue one of our conversations out in public. One thing that I wanted to know, and I think you would agree with me, that bonds is not a very good investment right now, based upon what's happening in the market. Investors are pulling out of it. But on the other side of that is that because we have a great bond rate, this looks like an opportunity for us to snatch it while we can and kind of complete a project that is indeed a project that would bring up the quality of life for our residents here. So my question is, based upon your experience in the market, how do you see the bonds and what is your rationale for this project? Because I see it at the fact that since we got a good bond rating, that this might be one of the reasons why we should take advantage of it.
Well, as with anything that's like that, I think it's complex, and I'll look to Ms. Salcido in a second here, but actually I think what we're seeing is a flight to safety. And so not every municipal bond is safe. And the ones that are, you're going to see purchases of. The ones that are not, they're going to require higher interest rate, higher reserves, much higher controls. The ones that are safer. So while their money may be leaving, whether it's the corporate bond market, municipal bond market, as we saw back in, it was the 2008, Ms. Salcido and I worked through the night trying to park our money away, get out of the Fannie Mae's, make sure we were safe. The money has to go somewhere. It's not a matter of, well, we're going to put it in a sack and throw it in the vault. It has to go somewhere. And then on a corporate level, on a nationwide level, they're looking for safe places to park that money. And getting a 4.25% in a safe investment is pretty good, because no one's going to the Fannie Mae's, and that's not available. They're not going to many of the corporations, and clearly they're not going into overseas companies, particularly given the volatility of a number of countries that would normally have money. So they're looking for places to park money, and that's what I think we're looking at. Ms. Salcido, what is your estimate?
I agree with you.
It's very complex, but I think we're a safe place.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Duran. Any other questions from council? Resolution number 11...
23.
23.
23.
Resolution of the council authorizing and approving the issuance of redevelopment agency of the City of El Centro tax allocation bonds series 2011 in one or more series as tax exempt and taxable bonds, and authorizing official actions and execution of documents related thereto. Motion by Solomon.
Second.
Second by Sanders. Please ballot.
Motion carried 5-0.
Okay. We still have closed session. We're going to re-adjourn into closed session after this, and also we're going to re-adjourn the meeting to Friday, but we still have redevelopment agency to take care of, and then our brand-new meeting with the El Centro Financing Authority. So does the council wish to take a break? Let's take a 5-minute break and come back and continue this.
Not those. They're not quite done. They're almost done. 2 more weeks.
2 more weeks?
Well, the tiles are waiting for petitions.
My goodness, that's the longest bathroom project. Sedalia and John are back there. They're getting pretzels.
Okay, let's do our new or reinstated El Centro Financing Authority agenda.
We don't have a city clerk.
Do we have,
Oh.
do we have?
We lost her in the turn. She's on her way.
I'm not taking the blame, and Sedalia, you don't have to either, because we were saved by the clerk.
Saved by the bell.
Finish my, I'm sorry. I'll turn around so
Come on,
you.
get on her, man, get on her.
We're all waiting for you, Ms.
I asked you to wait for me.
Okay, let's do the our El Centro Financing Authority agenda. There are minutes from the November 4th, 2009 meeting. So I need a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Moved by Walker, second by Edney. Please ballot.
Motion carried 5-0.
And now we have a resolution of FA, I'm sure it's 11-1. Resolution of the El Centro Financing Authority establishing the time and place for the regular meeting of the Financing Authority, which would coincide with the regular meetings of the City Council. Are there questions from council, from the Financing Authority?
No. Every 2 years, no, every year.
I would just note that the resolution was prepared as if it were a regular meeting, and we'll change it to a special meeting on the
Oh,
final
special
one.
meeting, okay. Okay, so
Move for approval.
moved by Walker,
Second.
second by Sanders.
Mr.
Okay,
Silva? Mr. Silva? Motion carried 5-0.
Okay, we'll now reconvene as the El Centro Redevelopment Agency. Consent item is the approval of bid documents, specification, and authorization to go out to bid for the purchase of a new model sports utility vehicle.
I just had one quick question. I don't mean to be picky, but I noticed that you were looking for cloth bucket seats instead of leather. Doesn't leather last longer?
Yeah, it would be
Not,
pretty
I don't think in this weather we might
city.
get that kind of material here.
I'm just wondering. Okay.
So is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
Moved by
Second.
Walker, second by Sander, please ballot.
Motion carried 5-0.
Okay, item number 2 is the approval of resolution of the RA 1104, approving the termination of agreement containing covenants affecting real property and re-release of all covenants with BLM El Centro, a California limited partnership. We'll have a presentation by our redevelopment director.
Yes, and actually, I'll make it very brief because this is a similar action you took with the city council agenda tonight, which basically consists of terminating an agreement containing covenants that was dated between the redevelopment agency and BLM El Centro back in 1993 for properties that are located on Wake Avenue. The intent of this agreement was to have the developers at the time, or owners of the time, BLM El Centro, construct a regional shopping mall. And as you are well aware, the city already has a shopping mall. Not to mention that this property has transferred ownership from BLM El Centro several years ago to Mr. Merrill. Therefore, there's no need to have this agreement in place. Therefore, that's why you see the recommendation to terminate this agreement. So that way the lien that was created as a result of this agreement can be removed from the 8 parcels that are included on the termination agreement that's presented before you. If there's any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Questions from council?
Move approval.
Second.
Moved by Sanders, second by Walker. Please ballot.
Motion carried 5-0.
Then Item number 3 is approval of resolution RA 1105 of the redevelopment agency of the city of El Centro authorizing and directing the issuance, sale, and delivery of the agency's El Centro redevelopment project tax allocation bonds, series 2011, in one or more series on a tax-exempt or taxable basis in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $4.2 million, approving the execution and delivery of one or more indentures of trust, a purchase contract, and a continuing disclosure agreement with respect to the bonds, approving the form of a preliminary official statement, and authorizing certain other actions in connection therewith.
And basically, the
Boy, that took a long
presentation.
time to say.
Basically, the presentation is similar to the action that was presented by Ms. Salcido regarding the issuance of bonds. Again, because it is the agency, the one providing the tax increment for the purposes of repaying these bonds, you are required to take similar action through the redevelopment agency.
Okay. Any additional discussion? Is somebody ready to make a motion?
Move approval.
Moved by Sanders, second by Solomon. Please ballot.
This is the companion action.
That is correct.
Motion carried 5-0.
Okay. There's some reports, updates on the agenda. Anything else on redevelopment, Marcel?
No, this is it.
That concludes the open session. We're going to, again, re-adjourn back into, any public comments? Forgot to mention public comments, no? We're going to re-adjourn in closed session. Thank you for
Oh, the
those of you that
council
are here.
reports?
Did you want to hear the council
Oh,
reports?
yes, thank you. Council member reports.
Carrie, could you hang back?
I don't think I have
Okay,
any.
Mr. Salomon? Ms. Anders?
Nothing.
Ms. Reddy? Ms. Walker?
Oh, I thought we had an excellent League of California Cities get-together last Thursday. A lot of great compliments about the food, so need to keep that in mind. I thought the inclusion of represented officials, electeds from San Diego County was outstanding. It was a great idea, Mr. President. I did want to alert the council that with regard to El Centro Regional Medical Center, we are looking to do a joint strategic planning session in April. More likely than not, we will do a Friday afternoon and then a Saturday session. Friday afternoon to be facilitated by Nate Kaufman, who has facilitated the strategic planning sessions for last number of years. And also, if you've driven by Main and 4th Street lately, you'll see that the grading for the outpatient center is well underway.
Hip, hip, hooray.
No kidding.
Thank you, Ms. Walker. I also want to concur and say that the meeting last week was excellent. Ms. Reddy, as it relates to the mayor's meeting that we talked about there, do we have any?
I will
Tentative dates?
contact Ms. Hill from the League of Cities and find out. I was hoping to have already had out a request to the mayors for some dates, so I'll remind her tomorrow.
Okay.
And I
Thank
would
you.
like to get that done in March.
Right.
As you can see, we're getting some push, appropriately so, from outside agencies, and I think in our 5-minute brief discussion with the mayors at the conclusion of that meeting, there was a general agreement that that was a major topic of discussion, and I think and I think you guys will agree who were there, collectively, I think everybody thought that was the best approach. And so I want to get them, all the cities involved and on board at the beginning before, it gets too far along and somebody feels they've been slighted.
Left out.
Or left out. And so I'm hoping the mayors will take charge of that. And then, as we talked about at the meeting, there'll be some other items, at least brought up as a discussion, that the mayors will be bringing back to the councils over the next few months for further discussion.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Reddy. I have nothing else. So now we are really, we re-adjourn in closed session. Thank you. Thank you guys for
Mrs.
coming.
Penderell, I have something. Mrs.